Tonight we'll be talking about college admissions in Arizona. My name is Maggie Tom. I am the director of the FACTS program at NAU. That stands for Family Access, Communication, Transition, and Support. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the presentation. So we're going to talk about tonight college and university admissions, language, as well as requirements. We'll go over overarching college and university admissions. We will then go into NAU college and university admissions requirements. The three Arizona universities are similar in their college and university admissions requirements, but you'll want to be specific if you are looking at either ASU or U of A. We're also going to talk about the importance of high school success. Okay, so first we're going to go over admissions. The other thing that I didn't mention is if you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A and I will get to that as soon as I see it. All right, so college admissions. There's a lot of language that goes into college admissions, so we'll go through some of those. I will explain what those different terms mean as we go through the different lingo. So you might see some things that you see on this slide here. So admissions requirements. So we see things like proof of high school graduation. Sorry, I just lost my place. So part of what we're going to go through tonight, like I said, was language, which admittedly in a lot of higher education can be kind of confusing. If you ever have any questions on a word that I am saying and I don't explain what it means, again, feel free to put that in the Q&A. All right, so admissions requirements. So often when you are looking, either you are looking as a student or your child is looking, if you are a family member that is helping a child, these are common requirements that you will see on this slide when looking at colleges. The admissions application process is a really great opportunity for a family member to support their student by giving them some advice while the student takes the lead in the process. So if you look here, the first one that we have here is proof of high school graduation. So at some point, prior to a student starting in college, that college is going to need to see that they have completed high school, and we're going to need proof of that. They'll submit their final high school transcript, often prior to their first semester of college. So often in that summer after they graduate, before they start college, you're going to want to send in that final high school transcript. Colleges look at final high school transcripts often to confirm if a student earned a merit scholarship that they had been offered. The second thing on this list that you'll see when you are looking at college admissions requirements is often something we call coursework competencies. This can be called different things, so it can also be called core classes. So you might see that verbiage on a website. And these are the classes that are required to be taken in high school in order to gain admission to a certain college or university. It shows that institution the student will be ready for the academic rigor of college. The third thing you're going to see when you're looking at admissions requirements is high school GPA. We're going to go into depth on that, looking at two different ways that colleges and universities review GPA, which is either weighted or unweighted. And like I said, we'll go through that in more detail in just a couple of slides. Often college admissions requirements often will have college entrance exams. That is number 4 there. That includes things like the ACT and the SAT. And while they commonly used to be required by all institutions, there's a lot of institutions now that are test optional. Not all institutions are test optional. So it's very important that when you're looking at a specific college or university and you're looking at their admissions requirements, that you check to see if one or the other of these college entrance exams are required. Some colleges require an essay or personal statement. These are asked for when the institution wants to get to know the student a little bit more, understand what they bring to the institution, their experiences. It also gives the institutions a really good indication of a student's writing ability. Number 6 there is letters of recommendation. Again, some colleges and universities require these. And these letters are usually from teachers, mentors, coaches, people that know your child in a capacity that they could write about who your kiddo is and why they would be a good choice for that college and why. And we'll go over this in a little bit more detail when we talk about the importance of high school success. Number 7 there is not a often is a requirement when you're submitting an admissions application, could be an application fee. So most institutions will have an application fee that is required to apply to that institution. A lot of schools do offer waivers for certain families, and some institutions will waive that fee for in-state students. So I encourage you, if you are looking at institutions and you're worried about the application fee, to reach out to that college or university's admissions office and ask about fee waivers. All right. So admissions language, again, going through some language that might be new to you. What we're going to go over here has to do with high school grade point average, also known as a GPA. So this slide goes over what a grade point average is, which is an average of grades earned in school, where each letter grade is a certain number of points. And then those points are totaled and divided by the number of classes at the end of the semester for like a semester GPA. So you'll see then that a cumulative grade point average is the average of all semesters GPAs during high school. So when a student is taking classes in high school, they earn a grade, and then based on those grades, the high school will calculate their grade point average. And then that grade point average is very important to colleges who look at GPA in 2 different ways. So some colleges and universities will look at an unweighted GPA. So that is there on the left. And that calculates a GPA on a 0 to 4.0 scale. And it doesn't consider the difficulty of courses. So it looks at all classes as being the exact same. So that means if your student is in an AP class, an honors class, a baccalaureate class, something like that, and a college is asking for an unweighted GPA, they are not going to take into consideration the difficulty of that honors class in an unweighted scale. So if a student received an A in AP English, they would get 4 points for that on that unweighted scale. The weighted scale, on the other hand, calculates GPA on a 0 to 5.0 scale and considers how difficult the course is, which means it gives more GPA points for harder classes. So that same AP English class that your student got an A in, if it is unweighted, it's going to be 4 points they get for that class. But in a weighted GPA situation, it would be a 5 point. And it's helpful to look at an example, so that's what we're going to go over next. So you can see here that we have the classes listed there. So student takes English 2, they get an A. The weighted points for that would be 5, and the unweighted points would be 4. Same for US history, we have an A, weighted 5 points, unweighted 4. And then you can see algebra 2, we got a C in. So that's 3 points on a weighted scale and 2 points on an unweighted scale. Chemistry with a B is 4 weighted points and 3 unweighted points. And then you add all those together. So weighted points, we have 17. So if we're calculating that GPA, we're going to do 17 divided by 4 classes to get a 4.25. So you see that that weighted GPA is above a 4.0 scale. And then the unweighted GPA totals to 13 points divided by 4. We get a 3.25. So an institution that looks at weighted GPA in their admissions requirements would look at that as a 4.25 semester GPA, whereas an institution that only looks at unweighted GPA would see that as a 3.25. Okay, so first year admissions requirements for NAU specifically, I'm going to go through those now. And we're looking for three main things at our institution. Did the student graduate high school? So students who are admitted to NAU prior to the beginning of their first semester are required to submit a final high school transcript, which shows that they graduated high school. And then we're going to look at coursework competencies. So here at NAU, we are going to ask, did the student take all the Arizona Board of Regents required coursework competencies in high school? And the Arizona Board of Regents is the governing board for the higher education here in Arizona. So they tell the three state institutions what coursework competencies students need to take in order to be admitted into those institutions. And then the third thing there is we are going to look at high school GPA. Here at NAU, we look at an unweighted GPA. So we don't take into consideration if a student has taken an AP class or an honors class. We look at that unweighted GPA. NAU is a test optional school. That means that we don't require that a student take the ACT or the SAT, but if they do, they are able to submit those scores. We also do not require an essay, personal statement, or letters of recommendation, and we do not require an application fee for our Arizona residents. Okay, so let's dive into those coursework competencies, also known as core classes. You might hear that said. So these required competencies are what help us determine if a student is academically prepared for higher education. So here at NAU, we require that a student has taken 4 years of English, 4 years of mathematics, 3 years of a lab science, 2 years of social science, 1 year of fine art or career and technical education. And here at NAU, we have optional second language 2 years. So we have an optional for that second language. Some of the other institutions at within the state of Arizona do require 2 years of a second language. So it's really important that while you're in high school and you're thinking about college, your kiddo is thinking about college, if you're a family member, that you are looking at what courses are required for your student to gain admission to that university, to make sure that while you're in high school, the student is taking the right classes to get into the college that they want to go to. You might also hear this called the Core 14. So here at NAU, sometimes we refer to it as that as well. And that means that when we are looking at the GPA of a student who has given us an application that wants to attend NAU, we are only looking at the GPA of these core classes, and we're looking at the unweighted GPA of these core classes. So if you want to know what your unweighted GPA is, you can go through and say, well, what did I get? So taking 4 years of English, obviously it's the spring semester, so you might not be done with English yet. So you can say like, okay, what if I got an A? But you go ahead and you look back freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. Okay, I got an A in English those years. And you go through these core competencies. You can figure out what your core GPA is. So you might hear that said that way as well. So we are just looking to make sure, how did you do in these classes? What's your unweighted GPA there? All right, so going into these admissions requirements, so we will automatically admit a student who meets those coursework competencies, meaning that they've taken all of the required courses and has an unweighted core GPA of 2.75 and above, as long as they don't have any deficiencies. And deficiencies are listed there at the bottom of the slide. But I would really urge you, if you are worried about any type of deficiency, to reach out. If you want to come to NAU, you would reach out to our admissions staff to see about those deficiencies, and they can help walk through that. If you can get them a transcript, they're happy to read those and kind of see where the student's at. But those deficiencies include not taking the required number of courses in a competency area. So the slide before said 4 years of English. Let's say you only took 3 years of English. That would be a deficiency. Another deficiency would be receiving a grade of F in a core competency course. And another deficiency would be receiving an unweighted GPA of below a 2.0. So consideration for admission then, not automatic admission, but consideration for admission goes to any student who has a 2.5, again, unweighted core GPA, so those core classes, and no more than one deficiency in any 2 areas of the core competencies. And again, core competencies are those classes that we saw on the previous slide, but I would highly recommend, again, if you have any questions about deficiencies or whether you as a student are going to be admitted to NAU, or your student is going to be admitted to NAU, please reach out to our phenomenal admissions staff, and they would be happy to walk through that process. Okay, so in addition to admission requirements here at NAU, if a student is interested in our honors college, they are required to do a couple of extra things to be admitted into the NAU Honors College. So they have to be admitted to NAU prior to applying for honors. So they have to make sure they've met all those requirements that we talked about before. They've been admitted to NAU. Now they can apply for the Honors College. They also have to have a 3.0 unweighted for high school GPA. And then for our honors application, an essay is required, as well as a resume or a summary of activities and accomplishments. And if you want to learn more about the NAU Honors College, I would recommend you can call them, you can look at their website. You can also email them at honors@nau.edu if you have specific questions. All right, we are going to dive into high school success. Why is it important to be successful in high school? If you're a family member, how do you support your student to be successful in high school? So we looked at some of those admissions requirements. All of those things start in high school. How a student does in high school directly impacts where they get into college. It can also impact scholarships. What kind of scholarships are they going to get? So we're going to go through some things that are super important to encourage students to be super successful and try their hardest while they are in high school. Okay, so these first couple of, for this slide, so how do you support your child's success in high school? So the first one, we're going to dive into these in a little bit more detail, but is going to be to set expectations. Help your student get organized, get to know your child's counselor and teacher, so their high school counselors. Have your student meet regularly with their high school counselor. You're going to encourage them to try new things, maybe push themselves a little bit outside of their comfort zone. And then you're going to talk about school often. You're going to talk about high school, how classes are going, how things are going, just to keep that communication going, and also to continue to show how those high school years do weave into college. Okay, so how do you set expectations? So research has shown that a parent or a guardian setting high expectations and showing that they believe in their child has an impact on the success that that child sees in school. They both help in motivating your student to fulfill their dreams. Your belief in your student, if you're a family member, is one of the most important things. Students that have a parent or someone in their life that believes in their abilities will believe more in their own abilities. So how do you do that? I'm sure everyone is doing that a lot, but you talk early and you talk often. So share your hopes and your dreams for their educational future. Ask about and listen to what they think about their future. What are their dreams for college? Or what are their dreams for after college? Maybe right now they really want to be a doctor. Okay, we'll talk about what does the pathway to do that look like. Explore those passions that your child has um, for what they want for their future. You also just need to state your confidence and belief in their ability to achieve their dreams. So you want to be a doctor, I think you would be an amazing doctor. I think that, is great. Would you want to be, you know, a psychologist, or would you want to do cancer research? So all sorts of things like that. But your belief in their dreams makes them realize that those dreams can happen. Some other things on the expectations is expecting your child to do their best while at school and attend all of their classes. So attending class in high school is imperative in your student being successful. Students who miss class have to catch up, which often causes extra stress. Obviously, if your student is sick missing class, that's okay. But other than that, the expectation should be that they are in class, they are going to school and they are going to class the entirety of their high school career. Expecting your child to do their assignments on time and to study for their tests, as well as expecting your student to pursue education after they graduate high school. Letting them know that they have the full support of their family in pursuing college and their dreams. Okay, so helping your student to get organized. And I know that this one can be hard and different people have different organizational structures. But these are some tips that we found kind of just through research, through talking to students and families about the things that have helped them get their students organized. So building their study skills is a huge one. Classes only become more difficult when you get to college. So starting to ingrain those disciplines of studying in your student in high school is really important. So ensure that they're getting their homework done and that studying is a priority at home. Asking about their assignments, showing interest in what they're learning, helping provide a really good routine with schoolwork can help instill a strong work ethic before they go to college. And whatever that looks like and works best for your family, that might be when the kiddo gets home, they sit at the table, they finish all of their assignments, study for their tests. Maybe it's later because there's extracurriculars. You know your family best, but just having some sort of routine around those study skills is super important and will help your student when they're in college and they don't have you there saying you need to sit at the kitchen table and study. Helping your child learn how to break down large and difficult tasks into smaller, more manageable ones. This is just a great life skill in general. It's a really great one to start working on now. When things feel super overwhelming, learning how to break things down into manageable bite-sized pieces can help us to get things accomplished. So this really large task that I have, this really big project, if I can break it into 5 steps, that feels much more manageable. I'm going to finish each step until I finish all 5. When your student is feeling overwhelmed, it's a great opportunity to sit down with them and ask them, okay, how do we break this down to more bite-sized, manageable pieces so your student feels less overwhelmed? Talking about time management is very important. It's important that students learn how to juggle school with their other activities and the responsibilities that they have at home. To my earlier point, you won't be with them in college to tell them how to manage their time. So working on those things now is really great. It's also a really great time to talk about the importance of when you say no and when you say yes. So a student might be in really difficult classes in high school, they're in band, maybe they play a sport, and someone says, oh my gosh, I'd love you to be the secretary of the club. That's a really great time to have a conversation about, okay, if you say yes to this, what does that mean? for the rest, are you going to be really stressed? Will you have enough time to study? Kind of going through those when you say yes, why are you saying yes? And if you say no, why are you saying no? Helping students to develop a way to keep track of their assignments and deadlines. This is kind of just one of those old-fashioned things. I am a write everything down kind of person, so I still have a paper planner that I write everything in. I know students probably have some really cool things on their phones that they can do, but just figuring out what works for them, something that's going to allow them to start learning some of that time management, and keeping track of tasks. So when they're in college, they're a little bit more used to that, right? Assignments are due at all different times. We have different deadlines for presentations, all those things, and being able to put them all in one spot so your student can look and then kind of plan out like, okay, that paper is due in 2 weeks. I should probably start working on that. And then lastly, teaching them how to find help at school if they're struggling. So struggling is a completely normal part of life. Sometimes academics can be really difficult. They're a little bit harder. We need a little bit more one-on-one assistance. So again, this is also a really great life lesson. It's okay to ask for help. All the people in the high school are there to help your student, just like everyone at college is also here to help your student. So teaching your student that it's okay to ask for help when they're struggling helps to reinforce to them all the people around them that are there to help. If they're having trouble with math, for example, talk to them about how they might approach their math teacher to ask for some additional help. All right, getting to know your teachers and counselors. So it's super important as a parent, family member, somebody who is supporting a student in high school, that you get to know your child's counselor and teachers. That can be done through regular communication, coming to things like parent-teacher nights and open houses, introducing yourself, who your student is. Your child's counselor and teachers can be one of the absolute best supporters that you have in helping your child get through high school successfully, and through college. Also encouraging your student to go meet with their counselor on a regular basis. The counselors are key supporters that are huge help to your child, so it's important that they try to meet and utilize their teachers and counselors for help. Oftentimes, it's super helpful if their parent, family member is the one encouraging them to go do that. Counselors at high schools can be really good mentors for students. They can help them not only navigate high school, they can help them navigate college applications, scholarship applications, things like that. We talked about earlier that some colleges require letters of recommendation. Well, your high school counselor might be the perfect person to write that letter of recommendation. So getting to know them, and allowing them to get to know the student is one way to build a really great mentorship relationship, which to that third bullet can help with letters of recommendation for college if they're needed. The other thing is to try new things. So encouraging a student to try new things in high school, encouraging them to take classes that they're interested in, doing things to the best of their ability. So if your student really has been hesitant to sign up for an honors class, but they have really good grades and that's something that they've talked to their high school counselor about, might be a really good option. If it's just nerves keeping them back, encourage them to sign up for those difficult classes if that's something that they want to do. Those classes can help strengthen college preparedness. They can also help aid in some critical thinking, as well as strengthening those study skills habits that we talked about earlier. Also encouraging your student to get involved in a new activity. So extracurricular activities are just one way for your student to try something new. Discovering their strengths and interests helps them to meet new people. It helps them to get to know themselves really well, teamwork, things like that. So if they're just feeling a little bit nervous, but they might really want to try out for choir or the volleyball team, just continuing to encourage your student that trying new things is really important, and that they'll be happy that they did that. So that concludes tonight's webinar. of just going over some college admissions, what that requires. Again, every college is going to be a little bit different, so I highly recommend that you go review those websites to see what the college requirements, the admissions requirements are. It would be the same at a community college, so you'll want to check out what their admissions requirements are. I'd recommend doing that while your kiddo is in high school, so you can make sure that you have all of the things that you need, that your student has all the things that they need to be admitted to the college that they would like. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great evening.